everybody wants to bring up body parts just by doing more. So it's like everyone, like you have somebody has like the bro split. And they're like, I want to bring up, first off, I always think it's funny when someone wants to bring up everything. I'm like, what's your priority body part? Like, everything. Well, I want to bring up my quads, you know, and then like delts a little bit. And then of course chest, you know, and my lower lats. And I'm like, so like half your body.
So literally like everything.
And I'll be like, pick one, maybe two if it's smaller body parts. Drive that ball foot into the platform. What you think about more than anything else, drive that ball foot into the platform. So you think how much weight do I have on here? So you have however much weight on here, but the most force is coming from that platform into your foot because you have the weight on here plus the entire weight of your body. So if that moves around, it's basically inconsistent how you're actually getting force into that calf. So find the spot you're most comfortable, try and keep those contact points. And keeping a little on the ball of the foot too helps keep your feet from wanting to shift. People do the cheats, like they rotate their ankles to the outside, things like that. You want to keep everything right and plane.
It starts to really burn. I'm like, I can't even do another rep.
Yeah.
Instead of doing just the partials and doing the same tempo, sometimes I'll bust out 5 a little faster.
Yeah.
What do you feel on that? Time and place?
So like a tempo overall, I think is very individual dependent, but whatever tempo, because I always say people is like, what tempo? And I honestly never prescribe tempo. People are like, oh, you're all about that slow control. I'm like, no, I'm about using your muscles, whatever that means to you. Because in general, the better you're connected with the body part, the better your form actually is, the faster you can go and still use that muscle. So it's not about going slow. And I think the honest thing for people to ask themselves is, am I using the train muscle or am I using momentum or something else? Or am I using the train muscle? And then the last thing that I think bodybuilders get, I think, is just make it as hard as possible on yourself. That's the goal, right? As hard as possible. So my preference is whatever I standardize as a tempo from the beginning, I want to keep all the way through to the end. Because generally, like if you get to a point where you can go faster, you're possibly not actually using that muscle anymore. You're starting to use momentum to accelerate somewhere and give a break somewhere else, right? Because the thing about it, like a leg extension is like, as an example or anything where you can like launch it from the beginning. So I'm like, I'm gonna get this going. And then basically if it's launched, like in the middle, you might not actually be using your quad. Momentum gets it going fast, you maybe catch it somewhere else and then lower it with the muscle. So there'll be parts of the range of motion you're actually not using your muscle. That being said, like you just said, if it works well for you, and there could be times for it too. So sometimes, I mean, obviously this is the context of like, what am I really doing? Am I really stuff out? Like somewhere like this, I technically wouldn't because I feel like because like the foot placement's so tricky and stuff already, and the stuff is not as locked in and stable. I feel like if you go fast, you might actually shift off the calf, put it on your feet, do something else. Now, honestly, a leg extension might be an example where it's like, okay, take it as far as I can. I would still probably go, okay, partial, short range motion, and at the end, I'll be like seizure reps, just or whatever it is. And that's the joke. It's like when that's intentional, I do think sometimes that can have a place. So all that's contextual. Depends on the exercise, depends on the person, depends on how things were up to that. Because normal people, when they say go faster, it does just turn into cheating. It's either
you're right. There is definitely momentum used. If I must be honest, thinking about doing the calves, like I just told you, increasing momentum, or sorry, the tempo. But I notice sometimes whenever I do, the pace does go a little faster towards the end. I just get a few partial reps a little faster. I notice that sometimes I get more blood volume in that muscle. So to whereas if I continue to go the same tempo, sometimes I'm not getting maximum pump, but I'm still getting maximum stimulation. I'm getting more stimulation out of the slow, more like what you were saying, versus like the pump comes a little bit more whenever I increase the tempo. So I don't know, like I just wanted to pick your brain for a second on that.
Yeah, that's an interesting one too. I mean, if you really want to nerd too, you can make the argument too, is like, you know, eccentrics, and this is pretty, I hate to use the word definitive, but pretty implied by research that, you know, eccentrics and the stretch position particularly relate more to muscle damage. And they're also less energy expenditure. So to lower weight, even there's an X amount of force production, there's less actually energy expenditure to do that. Whereas concentrics are less overall muscle damage, but more metabolically demanding. So in general, I would say it's pretty accurate to say more concentrics are more related to a pump, where eccentrics might be more related to muscle damage.
Makes sense.
And so if you can do something to allow for more concentrics, then you might get a better pump as a result of that. And honestly, like that kind of stuff, as long as you're using the same muscle, and it's something where you're not using it to cheat, it's intentionally basically planned ahead of time, that's kind of personal preference. Because people will go back and forth, like now people get kind of definitive nerds, like, you don't want to do too much stretch stuff, too much eccentric stuff because it's too muscle damaging and all that. And again, it's not that that's a bad thing to think about sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think most people like reading that stuff just get like impaired by the information.
I just want to pick your brain because I've trained so many different ways, super slow, super fast, and I'm not controlled, and a little bit of both in between, and I think it's all effective to some degree. I just want to pick your brain.
Yeah. And I think that's if you answer yourself like, still, am I making this harder for myself? That's a top question, because I think a lot of people too, most people go fast, it's because like the pain to keep the same pace is borderline intolerable. Because I've done that, where it's like I'll get to the end of the set and every single thing in my entire body says, just go faster, just change something. Whereas if I actually keep the same tempo through a long set of leg extensions or whatever, it's the most painful thing you can possibly do in the gym. So sometimes it's like, am I really doing this because it does this, or am I really doing this because it lets me out of that type feeling, you know what I mean?
Good point. I like it.
Good. Two more. One more. You're gonna keep your feet there, but just stand all the way up. And now these can just be quick right there. Keep going. Just quick right in the middle. This is the case for the quick ones. Just keep moving. Don't stop.
Oh my God.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Nice.
Oh man, that sucks.
Those are fun, right?
Oh, I've never done that one before.
Yeah, it's a fun one. Someone's gonna ask, so why do we do the squatted one? Your gastroc, which is the part of your calf, the lower leg that's actually the most superficial. So you got your soleus basically underneath your gastroc. That gastroc crosses over your knee joint, so you actually make it shorter when your knee's fully flexed. So the most short contracted gastroc you can have is when you're fully plantar flexed, toes pointed, and fully knee flexed. So that gives you a unique feeling. If you've never done that before, sat at the bottom of a squat and pushed, I was giving the cue ankles forward. I got that from another educator coach at some point. Just that's a really great way to try and get that fully short and contracted. It's a nasty contraction feeling. So it's not like a tool I would use really ever to like lower. There's nothing magic about that. I'm not saying there's anything magic there, but if you've never trained that range of motion before, it's really nasty, painful, cramping. And so you're gonna be weak-ish there. So that's why we started with that. And then just extended the set, just standing up, kind of a normal standing calf raise.
No matter what the deal is, you'll feel it.
Oh yeah.
You'll feel it.
So again, just kind of explaining that, not magic, but certainly fun. And I like to use that just a little bit as pump work. I would never really try and progress that or load that or anything. So,
oh man.
So you'll see like kind of the typical structure I'm gonna do on everything. It's kind of like just 2 working sets pretty much everywhere. Okay. So top set, back off set on almost everything. I'll have to double check what I've written down. I think maybe do like 1 extra set for like the rope pullover or something as well too. But that's kind of like my baseline volume, and we'll up and down it a little bit from there, depending on. I have pretty much all my training gears around Terrence at this point, but based on his recovery, if his recovery's a little better, I might taper it up just a little bit. As he gets closer into a show, I generally start to taper it down.
Gotcha. About the right things. Switch up on my nigga for a figure, that's not like me. Baddie with a body in the lobby, she like nice things. She used to know me then, she like me now, that's funny timing. Eyes been on that prize, I copped that cribbo for that timepiece.
That to your pelvis, crunch, right there. And just do like, 6 or 7 of these. Start. Because I'm having you probably 2 sets body weight and then maybe a little bit of load.
Let me not even say this. I just ran out of my patience. I just got tired of waiting and got here myself. Want me to believe in the dream that they see for themselves, but still doubting themselves. They might as well light up the L. High top on 10 toe, drip retro. Talking major plays, hella high tech through the getro. Pin game, pin petrol. Just set it in the flesh hole. Send a text mail to give a wet clothes on a vapor wave to make a drip with the left lobe in the left stroke.
Obviously, if you want to train, your quads from fully lengthened to fully stretched, you can't do it in one machine, right? There's nothing that really loads here and loads here. It's a bare minimum, like you need a squat and leg extension. But rectus abdominis, 6-pack muscles, they've got full spinal extension, full spinal flexion. That's their full contractile range. So same as any other muscle group, if you can take it through its full range of motion in one exercise, great. And then it's the same as anything else. If you want them bigger, load them.
Yeah.
If you want to see them better, get less fat.
What an easy little.
And that's the biggest thing too, training economy, right? So it's like that's the other.
You can take this anywhere. You do this in your living room.
Yeah, honestly, I have one sitting in my living room.
Yeah.
And then I have one at the home gym. And the nice part is they're like $20. Everyone's like, that one says Synergy on the side. People are like, is that the one I have to get? I'm like, no, I just got that because it's $20. And you'll find another one that's like 40 or 50 bucks or whatever. But you want, the only thing, if you do find one, you want one that's firm. That's about it. It's like because I'll have people ask me sometimes, can I just do a stability ball or a Bosu ball? And that's actually not bad, but it's the same as anything else, where the more, when you're trying to have any level of output, whatever you're pressing into, which in this case is that pad, the more firm, the better, the more output you're gonna have.
Right, so like that ball, it's good like you said, but I notice it like kind of shifts and moves, so it's hard to keep that stability
and
here.
It gives, so it's like
this one, this one, you can really like push like your lower back into the pad while you're crunching and keeping that waist really tight, sinking that stomach in. So
it's like the same as a leg press or something, or like any exercise. It's like, what would be better, a leg press with a back pad that stays still and doesn't move at all, or as you start to do a leg press, it gives a little bit this way, you're almost falling off that way. How would that change your ability to leg press a lot of weight?
Yeah,
it would just cut it down, right? And so abs are the exact same way, where it's like, well, why would I want something that limits output? At least for trying to get bigger ab purposes.
Talking to my mirror like I love you so much. Curving on my critics like I heard you, so what? You can't kill my confidence, I think I'm the man. Tally all the I ever gave on my head. Lately I've been living like I can't take a loss. They ain't wanna help me, that's what made me a boss. You can't kill my confidence, I think I'm the man. We don't give a that's what they don't understand. I'm back again like flu season. I broke records while loose leafing. I'm coming down my roof, leaving. Don't give a I don't care. Did the by my lonesome. No wonder now I'm on one. No shortcuts on that long run. All I really want is my share. Get him, I got him, I told him it's nothing. In the discussion, go them feelings, I throw all my pain on percussion.
Whatever grip honestly is comfortable. I want here, this can be fine as well too. So I just want, you want a grip like the reason I love this machine is because it diverges. It'll allow you to get your arms moving comfortably at your side. Gotcha. And it gets a little bit more of a lat stretch here. You know what I mean? Where if another machine was fixed one way or the other.
Oh, that's great. Just the way it turned, it looks like it's, okay. Yeah, I got you.
That's obviously working. So I'm not trying to think about like not using my traps.
Okay.
If there's anything I'm thinking about, so I am thinking about protraction and retraction as well too. So fine for upper back working as well. But the big thing is I'm actively thinking like before you start the motion, if you're not used to that, contract the lats, let them down. And as I stretch out, I'm keeping the lats contracted down. And as I'm pulling back, they're staying down the whole time. And then really like I have this like to help with the more lat and to still keep them down is I feel like I'm trying to wrap around to the finish. Like if I have a target, I say I'm trying to bring my elbows to touch right here. So that keeps them tucked real tight at the side. And it also, if the goal is the base of my hips, it keeps them down too, right? Because if I'm just trying, I'm not thinking back because that's gonna get just more rear delt eventually. I'm thinking down and around. And then I'll have you finishing right here. Like your lat's so big, for you the key might just be more like just when you feel like your triceps smashing your lats. Like you probably won't be able to wrap it around quite as much as I can. So it's a little bit different for everyone.
That's what I saw. I just want to make sure that was what you were intending to do. So
and so anytime you're doing any type of row, it's all the word everybody uses, which I think is accurate still, is bias. Which again, you're still using your entire upper back. You're not trying to keep any of it out of it. But there's a big difference between this and this. You know, and that's
I mean, your traps were like engaged and stabilized, but it looked like where I was kind of, where you were explaining it.
I got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems I solve them. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back, tell me I'm garbage. I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling. Phone and progression, it's all that I wanted. The phone in affection, I summon and dub it. Cause I got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems I solve them. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back, tell me I'm garbage. I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling. Phone and progression, it's all that I wanted. The phone in affection, I summon and dub it. Why you be all in my line about nothing? Why won't you go get you $1 or something? Don't hang with it who line for nothing. I see that we different, you riding, I double. I don't do discussions on bragging about hundreds. Don't go to your places, I know that they sunken. Don't call me your brother, I barely could trust it. I talked to a shorty, she bagging the bucket. And I'ma need all of my dollars on corporate, so hand me the money, I divvy the pie. I'ma give all of my people a portion to build up a fortune, I'm flipping the ride. I can't be easy when iffy the vibe, and 40 on 50 is really the time. Why is you all on my phone like you want me, like you wasn't pushing the kid to the side? I don't know if you thinking I'm blind. Cross on my crosses and dot on my eyes. Done with your efforts, I'm dealing with pressures. I know it's a lesson, that's word of the wise. Dubbing the mixes I'm mixing, I know I've been missing. I needed some personal personal time. Go up pictures, dimensions, I don't with your digits, I mean it, I'm staying inside. Cause I got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems I solve them. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back, tell me I'm garbage, I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling. Phone in progression, it's all that I wanted. The phone in affection, I summon and dub it. Cause I got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems I solve them. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back, tell me I'm garbage, I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling. Phone in progression, it's all that I wanted. The phone in affection, I summon and dub it.
So this is not normal amount of tissue back here. So pull into that end position. So where you were at, like the end of the row. So see how far away his elbow is from his hip. So this is where the nerds aren't gonna understand stuff. If we just measured that, that's like 2 feet away. If you look where I end up, I mean, where's my elbow relative to my hip?
Yeah, geez.
I don't know, 6 inches away, right? So it's again, someone say, well, how can this possibly have the same effect? How can his, like this has to be the wrong elbow position because it's so far away from his body. But if you literally look at his lat tissue and his tricep, he's got that fold there. They're compressed into each other. There's 3 inches of tissue smashing into each other. So this is where things change. We're working with slightly larger than average human beings.
Well, I even noticed for myself over the years of growing, I've had to position my
things change.
everything different. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. The other good thing though, so the funny thing, the really nerd stuff is actually as muscles get bigger, in some ways, not in some ways, in reality, they get easier to train.
I was about to say that because you were like, oh, I bet you have no problem engaging your lats. I'm like, not really. Like,
so the nerd thing, so we can look at because the lat crosses over the shoulder joint. So the axis of his joint is somewhere. So if someone's lat, literally their tissue ends here, the center of that tissue is closer to the axis of the joint. Whereas that center of that tissue gets further away from it, you're literally mechanically advantaged to use it better and to also be stronger. So it's kind of like the double, we already hate him because he's so damn big. And now it's also easier for him and he's stronger with the same tissue. But that is one of the reasons people talk about there's a genetic component. Like why is, like people that say, well, what does Kai Green do to train his back? And not that there's anything wrong with looking at what he does, but what he does to train his back, like he can't not train his back probably. It's so damn big. It has a anytime his arm's in front of his body, it has a mechanical pull. So for him, he could do wide grip pull-ups, elbows out here rows, elbows in here rows, pretty much anything. And it's hard for him not to train his lat. Yeah, and again, everybody's got something like that, right? Not everybody just has everything shit. Some people do probably.
Yeah, so for me, like I said, like when I was doing like the normal row there, it felt great. And then I just kept thinking to myself, almost like every other rep was like, you really gotta tuck those up. And so that this little movement right here is one that I'm not used to doing. It has become harder over the years.
For sure, yeah.
But it's still super effective, no matter size or whatever.
Yeah. And that's why if you understand, again, just a simple where do muscles pull, like the cue will help regardless of where you actually have tissue and what your limbs are, is again, if we're trying to have that elbow finish down and in there, whether you're skinny like me, large like Derek, tucking that in right there is gonna be the same cue that'll help everyone. It just might end up actually, we're looking at his bones and where things finish, it's just gonna be very different from person to person, so.
You look like that and he calls himself skinny.
The way that I ball, I should've played for the Big Ten when I touched stage, but they packed in, got a pretty thing to make a back bend. Let me see it all through the glass lens. Had some people try to snake if I see you, I'm teed up, I get you with brass hands. Skate off fast, put a buck on the dash, somewhere fast, with my feet up, wait, hold up the label, just call me the tapping. They just cut the check, so I'm up in the slit. I take for J to the neck, then I stretch. To start my day, I hit the gas dance. It's different now, I was down then, but that's all in the past tense, so I can't stop till I'm top 10, and I'm not 10. I'm so in love with the process, not all in the day, but it took some time to feel wrong. I just copped the crib, never home. No, I can't keep my charge on the phone. So she thinks she in love with a ghost. When I'm home, I make sure that she get what she needs, so she know what I'm capable of. Know my rhythm, cause spar with the pros. They pay me to hear what I'm on, they ask what I'm on, and I'm doing great, I suppose. Cause I get to do what I want, it's legit, but it sound like it's straight from the stove. They playing my tape in the field, and they treat me like I'm making plays in the fourth. But a beat bang with a force. I'm a product of stand, of course, yeah. I watch myself on the tightrope. They going up at a high slope. I don't got no work-life balance. I'm never throwing the talent. Way that I ball, I should've played for the Big Ten when I touch stage, but they packed in, got a pretty thing to make a back bend. Let me see it all through the glass lens. Had some people try to snake if I see you, I'm teed up, I greet you with brass hands. Get off fast, put a buck on the dash, somewhere fast, with my feet up, wait, hold up the label, just call me the tapping. They just cut the check, so I'm up in the split.
Control, stretch,
hard
squeeze, just like your phone. Good.
I was down then, but that's all in the past tense, so I can't stop.
One more. Stretch. Smooth. Hard squeeze.
I just copped the crib now. I can't keep a charge on the phone, so she thinks she in love with a ghost. I'ma make sure that she get what she needs, so she know what I'm capable of.
Is that what happens? You're at the birthday party and you just scream pose down and rip off your shirt?
It's not even discreet. I go over to whatever dad's house it is, I just go right next to him, strip down to the posing trunks, and just start hitting some poses, my mandatories, until everybody knows who won. And then they kick me out. That's the end of that.
Is it the kids or the wives that are the judges?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah. Yep.
Definitely the wives.
Yeah.
Number 1 in our hearts, number 2 in the charts.